putrid traitor!
Today we'll be exploring a little bit about one of the most sadistic Decepticons from the Generation 1 continuity family, Thundercracker. Thundercracker was a Decepticon to the core, and he took pleasure in making his victims suffer before the end. His Mach 6 glides were so loud that his victims could hear them from 200 miles away, and he intended it that way. It was a way to make them scared before he killed them, tearing them apart mercilessly. So let's just say he has some sort of expertise in terrorizing his victims. Although he is powerful, he has no interest in ruling the galaxy or obtaining the Allspark. But as long as Megatron lets him do his thing, he's satisfied. It's not hard to understand why he is Starscream's top pick when he takes power. Although comparatively, Thundercracker lacks experience, he's just as talented as Starscream. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Come, Decepticons! Follow me to victory!
Exploring the backstory of Thundercracker, the Decepticon who wasn't entirely committed to the cause. Before we discuss Thundercracker, we need to understand Starscream, that one character whose one objective is to be the evilest one of them all. Starscream is a powerful and cunning Decepticon who is second in command to Megatron, leader of the Decepticons, and transforms into a jet fighter. He is portrayed as a treacherous and selfish character who wants to lead the Decepticons motivated by greed and ambition. Yet in the continuities, he has been shown to be loyal to Megatron and care about the Decepticon cause. He is highly intelligent, ruthless, and cruel, but also quite cunning. He believes that the Decepticons should depend on guile and speed rather than their brute force to defeat the Autobots. Despite his ambition to become Decepticon leader, Starscream is often unsuccessful in this and suffers defeat. Starscream has a long history of creating clones of himself, which dates back to the classic original animated series. In the series, Megatron fooled the Autobots by creating an Optimus Prime clone, and followed that up with the Starscream clone. And in the 2008 Transformers animated series, Starscream creates an entire army of clones of himself. Each clone seemed to represent a different facet of Starscream's personality, such as greed, lying, cowardice, egotism, and even a female version. Funnily enough, the clones eventually abandoned Starscream and joined forces with Megatron. Unfortunately, most of the clones were destroyed in the end though. Now, you might be wondering, where does Thundercracker fit in all this? Well, Thundercracker was a Decepticon jet created by Megatron to be a clone of Starscream. He represented the egotistical and narcissistic side of Starscream. After he created the clones, Thundercracker and Skywarp were transwarped into space, along with Blur, after being trapped in a blob of Mixmaster cement. The other clones, overwhelmed by Professor Sumdak's Headmaster unit, unexpectedly sided with Megatron. The remaining three clones were quickly defeated by Omega Supreme, Lugnut, and Blitzwing. As Blur managed to escape and make his way to Cybertron, Thundercracker and Skywarp were left behind in space. As a result of the Ark crashing into Earth, Thundercracker was deactivated for 4 million years, until 1984, when he awoke to find himself with an alternate mode of an Earth jet. Thundercracker was among the Decepticons who played a part in the attack on the Autobots' Ark. Chronologically, Thundercracker made his first appearance in the Transformers Megatron origin, joining the criminal gladiator Megatron. He was an ever-present member of Megatron's Decepticons on Earth, and is best known for his ability to drain energy from his enemies. Thundercracker was a consistent presence on the battlefield, until he was severely damaged by Omega Supreme, and placed in stasis by the Autobots. He was then recovered by the planet-eating Unicron, and reformatted in a Scourge. Thundercracker was a loyal member of the Cybertron's defense force, commanded by leader Megatron. When a mysterious relic was uncovered, they were attacked by aliens from the SM's nebula, devastating the city of Metro Titan. Thundercracker and his comrades fought to defend their home, and Megatron used the attack to declare a military dictatorship. During the battle, Thundercracker and Ramjet competed for the highest number of kills. Megatron then ordered Starscream and Thundercracker to assassinate those escorting Optimus, the science leader. However, they underestimated his fighting abilities, and their mission failed when a city was dropped on them. Megatron declared them traitors and formed the Decepticon faction. Thundercracker was present for Megatron's inspiring speech and fought against Strongarm during the Civil War. He also became an apprentice to the immoral scientist Flatline and took part in the launch of a Decepticon flagship Nemesis. Also, as the War of Cybertron raged on, Thundercracker left the Decepticons and joined the Autobots in their mission to find the Allspark. He used his knowledge to build a makeshift space bridge and followed the path of the Ark, which had been launched into deep space by Optimus Prime. Along the way, Thundercracker encountered Hardtop, and together they discovered Sentinel Prime's lost ship on the moon, where they recovered a pillar. Finally, after exploring numerous planets and engaging in a few skirmishes, Thundercracker and Hardtop arrived back on Cybertron and rejoined the Autobots in their search for the Allspark.
Not for long!
He appeared in the animated series across 2 seasons. In the original series, the Autobots, led by Optimus Prime, are a group of giant robots from the planet Cybertron with the power to transform into cars, planes, and other vehicles, along with protecting Earth from the Decepticons, led by Megatron. In the end, their main objective is to fight for control of the Allspark, a powerful artifact combining action, comedy, and drama. The Transformers animated series chronicles the thrilling adventures of these two sides as they battle for supremacy of the universe. The epic battle between good and evil is brought to life in this series as the heroic Autobots and evil Decepticons crash land on Earth, continuing the eons-long conflict between the two warring factions. Let's take a closer look at Thundercracker, the villainous Decepticon, through some extensive episodes from the animated series.
That's what I call bringing the house down!
Season 1, Episode 9, Fire on the Mountain. While on duty, Trailbreaker and Brawn noticed Thundercracker and Starscream stealing steel from a refinery. Despite their best efforts, the Decepticons managed to escape by collapsing the building. Optimus Prime was perplexed as to why the Decepticons would be stealing steel, and so he dispatched a Sky Spy satellite to pick up any suspicious Decepticon activity. The satellite detected a strange energy source in the Peruvian Andes. The Decepticons had followed an Incan legend to a temple that rested atop a shaft connected to the Earth's core. The Crystal of Power had been located there, and with the metal acquired by Starscream, the Decepticons fashioned a weapon to hold the crystal upon testing it. Laserbeak spotted the Spy Sky, and Megatron destroyed it with the weapon. Unfortunately, the metal was insufficient and melted due to the raw energy from the core. Starscream tried to blame Thundercracker for the failed metal, but Megatron held them both responsible and sent them to stay at the temple, while he flew to a nearby mining town to acquire new metal for the weapon. Skyfire arrives in the nick of time and saves Brawn and Windcharger from Megatron's wrath. He then uses his powerful fire breath to give the Autobots the upper hand and drive the Decepticons away. With the Decepticons beaten, the Autobots return to Autobot headquarters, proud of their victory. Skyfire's valiant efforts have earned him the respect of his comrades and the knowledge that his presence will be a powerful asset in the fight against the Decepticons. Afterwards, Skyfire jumps in to save Brawn from the next fight with the Decepticons. The Autobots manage to thwart Megatron and his team mid-raid. Brawn takes the opportunity to use Megatron's arm cannon against him, but Laserbeak reclaims it and Megatron swears revenge. Skywarp is summoned to take away the metal gathered, and Thundercracker and Starscream are left behind to guard the temple. Louisa is nearly hit by a stray blast, but is saved by Spike and Bumblebee. She leads them to a secret entrance in the temple, where Soundwave dispatches Ravage to follow them. Seeing Skyfire creeping through the temple, Thundercracker was in a quandary. If he attacked, Starscream would undoubtedly take all the credit, but if he allowed Skyfire to destroy the weapon, he might be able to shift the blame to Starscream. Unfortunately, Starscream overheard the conversation and, before Thundercracker could make a decision, shot Skyfire. Outraged, Thundercracker was then blackmailed by Starscream, who threatened to tell their leader of Thundercracker's wavering loyalty. The Decepticons flee with their newly acquired steel, leaving behind destruction in their wake. To prevent the mining town from being harmed, the Autobots use their powerful weapons to break down the large boulders into smaller pebbles, thus saving the village. Meanwhile, Megatron goes back to the temple to test a new weapon frame designed to contain the power of the crystal. Bumblebee, Spike, and Louisa sneak into the temple, only to find the disabled form of Skyfire. Spike begins to repair the Autobot as Ravage suddenly jumps out and pounces on them. In an effort to protect the warrior, Bumblebee bravely attempts to keep the Decepticon at bay, while Spike works diligently to revive Skyfire. The Autobots arrived at the temple, only to be met with Megatron's powerful weapon frame cannon. However, the Autobots were able to outflank their foe, and the situation was turned around when Skyfire, having been repaired by Spike, destroyed the weapon frame. The Decepticons were forced to retreat, leaving Thundercracker with a sense of satisfaction at seeing Megatron and Starscream fail. Later that night, Wheeljack capped the fire stream with a device to contain the energy from the crystal. The Autobots celebrated their victory, and Bumblebee and Spike drove Louisa back to the mining town. She promised to introduce Bumblebee to her brother's convertible, Juanita. Season 1, Episode 11, The Ultimate Doom, Part 1. A confrontation between the Autobots and Decepticons ensues when Optimus Prime and his team of Autobots race to the solar power station of India's Malabar coast, only to discover that Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp had already arrived. As the Autobots began battling the Decepticons, Megatron and Dr. Arkeville watched the scene remotely, with Megatron ordering Soundwave to start Phase 2 of Operation Guinea Pig. This involved sending Rumble and Ravage to infiltrate the Autobots' headquarters while the distracted Autobots were preoccupied with the two Decepticons. Laserbeak swooped in, snatched Sparkplug, and flew away. The Seekers then flew away, leaving Prime suspicious. Sunstreaker soon informed him of the attack on their headquarters, leaving Optimus Prime to realize they'd been tricked. In India, the Seekers quickly retreated upon sensing something was amiss. Sunstreaker reported the attack on their headquarters. Subsequently, Dr. Arkeville brought Sparkplug to Decepticon headquarters and fitted him with a mind control device known as the Hypno Chip, placing him under the control of the Decepticons. To demonstrate their new technology, Sparkplug was forced to attack a full-size replica of Optimus Prime. Megatron planned to use this technology to create an army of human slaves. Following the successful completion of the first part of his plan, Megatron contacted Shockwave to confirm that the new space bridge was ready. Led by Optimus Prime, the Autobots launch a counterattack against the Decepticons to rescue Sparkplug. Cliffjumper, Brawn, and Windcharger tunnel under the seafloor, while Optimus leads a direct assault from the air. Despite the Decepticons' defenses, the Autobots succeed in their mission and return Sparkplug to their base. However, the Autobots soon become suspicious of Sparkplug's behavior, and Spike realizes that he has sabotaged their weapons and Teletran 1, allowing the Decepticons to launch a surprise attack. The Autobots launch a retaliatory strike against the Decepticons and save Sparkplug. When Spike confronts his father, Sparkplug desperately tries to persuade him to join the Decepticons. Spike refuses, and Sparkplug tearfully realizes that when they next meet, they will be enemies. In a bold move, Spike activates a fire retardant foam that clogs the Decepticons' weapons, forcing Megatron to call for a retreat. Sparkplug goes with them willingly. At the space bridge site, Megatron reveals his plan to bring Cybertron into Earth's orbit. This will create natural disasters, and the Decepticons want to use this to collect the energy and transport it to Cybertron. Although Dr. Arkeville is uncertain, Megatron insists that the evil scientists will figure out a way to make it happen. The Sky Spy alerted the Autobots of a giant space bridge, and they rolled out to investigate. When they arrived at the bridge site, Megatron used a group of human slaves as a shield. Things quickly became chaotic when the humans began attacking the Autobots with sticks and stones. Spike intervened and stopped Sparkplug from harming Bumblebee, causing them to think that he was back to his normal self. However, Arkeville reprogrammed Sparkplug when he ran to the first space bridge pylon and activated it. Thundercracker followed suit and activated the second one. Optimus Prime and Megatron then faced off the third pylon, with the latter ordering Prime to turn it on or the planet would be doomed. Knowing that he must save Cybertron, Optimus Prime reluctantly activated the space bridge, bringing it to Earth's orbit. With deep concern, he pondered if he had just doomed them all.
Decepticons, follow me to victory!
Season 1, Episode 12, The Ultimate Doom, Part 2. The arrival of Cybertron to Earth's orbit brings about a tremendous amount of destruction, with storms and earthquakes ravaging the land. However, Sparkplug is elated by the event, regardless of Spike's attempts to make him aware of the danger. Starscream rallies the Decepticons to launch an attack on the Autobots, yet the sheer force of the natural disasters has both sides disoriented. Megatron then orders Soundwave to transmit audio disruptor waves, much to the dismay of the Autobots, causing them great pain. Optimus Prime quickly calls for a retreat, and as the Autobots leave, Spike sadly watches his father board Skywarp. Megatron brushes off Starscream's criticism with a mere choke of his throat, prompting the slaves to flee in terror. Wheeljack remarks that they look as if they had just woken up from a bad dream. Dr. Arkeville then steps in, realizing that the disruptor wave is interfering with the hypnochip's control signal. He quickly sets out to modify the chips, but will need more materials to complete the task. Megatron contacts Arkeville and fills him in on the situation, suggesting they use the slaves to gather energy for Cybertron. After a brief experiment involving Sparkplug, Arkeville is confident that he has solved the problem, and Megatron promises him the necessary resources to complete his work. Despite the treacherous weather, Bumblebee and Spike were determined to return to the Autobot base. Along the way, Spike's worries about his father collaborating with the Decepticons weighed heavily on his mind. Suddenly, an earthquake struck and a fissure appeared in the ground, swallowing up Bumblebee. Laserbeak soon appeared and abducted Spike, leaving Bumblebee helpless. Fortunately, Hound, Bluestreak, and Windcharger arrived in the nick of time, rescuing both of them. At the Decepticon base, Megatron was sending Seekers with Energon cubes to power Cybertron. Dr. Arkeville was not pleased, as they were using his slaves as living shields in order to ward off the Autobots. He reminded Megatron of their agreement, where he would receive Earth after Megatron had finished recharging Cybertron. However, Megatron made no mention of how much of Earth would be left after he was done. Even Megatron was not immune to the effects of the storm, as the fierce tsunamis destroyed the entrance to the Decepticon base and flooded it. The Autobots gathered back at their base, debating how to deal with the situation. Ultimately, they decided to send the Dinobots to try to contain the destruction. Grimlock wasn't particularly interested in saving the Earth until he realized that he would be affected as well. Meanwhile, Optimus and Spike were discussing why Sparkplug would side with the Decepticons when the volcano suddenly became active. Skyfire managed to catch the ejected Autobots, while Ironhide was able to prevent the lava from flowing by covering it with an avalanche. The Dinobots worked tirelessly to prevent a tidal wave from hitting the shore. With Sparkplug captured, Prime and his team head to Cybertron in order to rescue him. Along the way, Spike overhears a conversation about Sparkplug being taken to Cybertron during Energon shipments. Knowing his father is in danger, Spike begs Optimus to take him to Cybertron and help rescue Sparkplug. Prime agrees, and with Skyfire, Wheeljack, Brawn, and Trailbreaker and Bumblebee in tow, they set off for Cybertron. Unfortunately, Spike falls into a trap and is in need of rescue. Fortunately, Brawn and Bumblebee are able to come to his aid. After they manage to get into Shockwave's stronghold, they find out details about the hypnochips, yet Sparkplug's entrance reveals their presence and he sets off the warning. With Sparkplug taken prisoner, Prime and his group are intent on freeing him.
Frees his son and sounds the alarm, alerting the Decepticons.
Season 1, Episode 13, The Ultimate Doom Part 3. The alarm sounded by the brainwashed Sparkplug Witwicky alerts Shockwave and Soundwave to the presence of Spike, Brawn, and Bumblebee on Cybertron. Skyfire, Wheeljack, and Trailbreaker come to their rescue, taking them to Wheeljack's lab, where they reviewed the data they have obtained from the hypnochip. Megatron is taking charge of building a huge hydroelectric generator, which will give the Decepticons a greater access to energy. Dr. Arkeville is starting to get frustrated by Megatron's disregard for his needs and feels Starscream may be more understanding. Optimus Prime and his team, consisting of Jazz, Prowl, Ironhide, and Bluestreak, who are riding on surfboards, are heading to the generator, only to be wiped out when the Decepticons take off in a shuttle filled with Energon cubes. Left to die, Arkeville is saved by Starscream, who has his own agenda for the scientist. Wheeljack successfully develops a device that disrupts the hypnochip's power to the humans, allowing Spike to attempt another rescue mission of his father. The Autobots manage to escape back to Earth with Sparkplug, who is now liberated from Decepticon control. Meanwhile, Megatron has been overseeing the loading of a shuttle with Energon cubes, and Mirage is trying to get the humans away from the shuttle. Starscream is also present and has failed to fill even a single Energon cube. When Megatron finds out about this, he is about to execute Starscream for treason. However, Mirage manages to get the humans away, and Prime orders an attack. The Decepticons outnumber the Autobots, but Skyfire and his team arrive in time to help even the odds and free the slaves from the Decepticons. As Cybertron appears in view, it causes a huge tidal wave, and Megatron quickly flees in the shuttle. Spike suggests to Optimus Prime that they try to knock Cybertron out of Earth's orbit, to which Prowl responds that they would need an enormous amount of energy to do that, the equivalent of 10 billion astroliters. Suddenly, Prime realizes that the Energon on board Megatron's shuttle could provide enough energy to move Cybertron away. Prime orders the Autobots to shoot the shuttle, and their plan succeeds. After seeing Megatron's shuttle blow up, Spike remarks to Optimus that Megatron appears to be gone, but the Autobot leader knows the Decepticons leader's survivability and isn't so sure. In space, Megatron comes back online and flies away from the wreckage, vowing revenge.
Nothing of you will be
Season 2, Episode 47, Starscream's Brigade. During World War II, humans fought each other on the island of Guadalcanal in the South Pacific, leaving behind their destroyed vehicles. Several decades later, in 1985, Starscream and Megatron had a dispute over Megatron's favoritism of Shockwave. Starscream ended up shooting Megatron in the back and claiming leadership, but Megatron quickly recovered and threw Starscream to the ground. The other Decepticons refused to follow Starscream's command to kill Megatron, so Starscream tried to escape. However, he was shot down by Megatron and Laserbeak carried him away, leaving him on Guadalcanal. Prowl and Lockdown caught and then lost Starscream on the moon. They followed clone number 27160057 to Earth, but encountered number 337038 instead. Lockdown betrayed Prowl and took the clone away. The Autobots chased both clones to an abandoned warehouse, where Megatron was waiting. The clones were booby-trapped with bombs, but Prowl used mods from Lockdown to send them up, where they detonated safely. Starscream, who was determined to create an army of his own, set to work creating 5 clones of himself. It was then revealed that Starscream had created the clones using a complex process combining blank protoform shells and pieces of the Allspark fragment in his head. To his astonishment, the 5 clones had distinct personalities, each one based on a part of his own. With his new army of clones, Starscream immediately launched an attack on both the Autobots and the Decepticons. Unfortunately, Thundercracker and Skywarp got stuck in a blob of Mixmaster cement and were transwarped to an unknown location in space with Blur. Meanwhile, the other 3 clones were overpowered by Professor Sumdac and the Headmaster unit, causing them to switch sides and join Megatron. These were quickly defeated by Omega Supreme, Lugnut, and Blitzwing. Whilst in space, Blur managed to escape, leaving Thundercracker and Skywarp behind. He sped towards Cybertron, leaving them seemingly stranded. Starscream, with the help of the Combaticons, raided Guadalcanal and destroyed the Optimus Prime Memorial, capturing Jazz and Cliffjumper in the process. He then returns to the island and announces that he will be their new leader, and no one will receive an energy absorber until he obtains 5. Megatron soon finds out about Starscream's plan, and launches an attack on him and his Combaticons. The Stunticons join in, and Starscream's giant robot, Bruticus, is defeated. Megatron then confronts Starscream, and finally admits that Starscream is now the leader of the Decepticons. Megatron assumes that the Autobots are responsible for the missing Combaticon components, and orders an attack on the Ark. However, the Autobots manage to fend them off. When Starscream and his army launch an attack while the Decepticons are attempting to refuel, they are forced to retreat, and Starscream captures Dirge and Ramjet. With 4 energy absorbers, Starscream and his team retreat to the amalgamated water and power plant to recharge. Megatron rallies his troops, with the exception of the Stunticons, and faces off against Starscream and his army. In the ensuing battle, Megatron uses Devastator, while Starscream reveals the Combaticons can also combine into Bruticus. The massive combiner defeats Devastator and forces Megatron to acknowledge Starscream as the new Decepticon leader. The Autobots rescue Jazz and Cliffjumper, while the Stunticons arrive and merge into Menasor to defeat Bruticus with one punch. Megatron grabs Starscream by the throat, banishing him and his army from Earth and leaving them stranded on an asteroid in deep space, from which Starscream vows revenge. Season 2, Episode 48, The Revenge of Bruticus. Starscream is not at all pleased with the Combaticons. Onslaught, however, has his own strategy for payback. Blastoff tows the asteroid to Cybertron, and the Combaticons combine with Bruticus, decimating Shockwave's Sentinel drones and shooting Shockwave into outer space. Megatron is overlooking the Insecticons on Earth as they consume a city. Optimus Prime and the Autobots arrive, and he sends the Protectobots to evacuate a nearby neighborhood, reluctant to cause harm to civilians. Perceptor is teaching Spike about shooting stars and their rarity. As Starscream was flying through space, he encountered Shockwave, who asked for his assistance in rescuing Cybertron. A scheme involving the space bridge has been formulated by Onslaught, which would transfer Earth right into the center of its sun and annihilate Decepticons and Autobots alike. People have been safely evacuated from the city, and the Autobots are battling the Insecticons when Spike and Perceptor show up, aware of Earth's changed orbit. Megatron commands Shrapnel to leave and take away the control console of the space bridge, and the Autobots rush to the space bridge to put an end to the plan. Starscream and Shockwave make use of the hologram to dupe the Combaticons into believing they are being assaulted. Shockwave finds out about Onslaught's alterations to the space bridge, prompting Starscream to fire at him and issue a challenge to Megatron to give up the Decepticons Decepticons or risk watching the destruction of everything on Earth. The Combaticons understand the ruse quickly, capturing Starscream and Shockwave. Megatron dispatches Thrust and Ramjet to search for the Insecticons and the console they ruined. The Autobots offer to help, and Perceptor fixes the console with components taken from Prime and Megatron. Prime demands that the Autobots accompany them to Cybertron, which Megatron agrees to. Upon joining forces, Starscream and Shockwave are freed, and the Combaticons start a battle. When the fight is not going in their favor, the Combaticons merge into Bruticus. Starscream points out a vulnerable area on Bruticus's back, which Prime successfully hits, and Sideswipe reverses the space bridge. Prime and Megatron agreed to take Bruticus down, but Megatron eventually reprograms the robot to be loyal to him, absolves Starscream, and welcomes him back to the Decepticons as a reward.
This was almost too easy, Starscream.
Much easier, almost.
Thundercracker appeared in Transformers the movie and the game Transformers Devastation. The 1986 animated movie Transformers the Movie follows the events of the Transformers TV series that we just talked about. It was also the first film in the Transformers franchise and was co-produced and directed by Nelson Shin and written by Ron Friedman. It picks up after the second season, which had ended 20 years prior. Optimus Prime and Megatron battle to the death, with Optimus ultimately sustaining fatal wounds. The Decepticons retreat and the Autobots are pursued by Unicron, who transforms Megatron into Galvatron. Set in 2005, the Autobots must take up on a challenge to prevent a gargantuan robotic entity from seizing the Autobot matrix of leadership. At the same time, they must be prepared to face an impending onslaught from their longtime adversaries, the Decepticons. The Decepticons have invaded and taken over the Autobots' home planet, Cybertron. The Autobots need to save fuel, so they got rid of Thundercracker, Skywarp, Shrapnel, Kickback, Bombshell, and Megatron, who was abandoned by Starscream. The Autobots are determined to fight back and go to Autobot City on Earth for supplies. A new threat to the Autobots appears in the form of Unicron, a massive planet-devouring transformer. The Autobots must battle both the Decepticons and Unicron in order to save their home planet and the Matrix of Leadership. In the game, Transformers Devastation, Thundercracker makes an appearance as one of the Decepticons. There are 5 primary playable characters that are all Autobots: Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Sideswipe, Wheeljack, and Grimlock. Thundercracker is a Decepticon jet who is a master of aerial combat. He wields an array of weaponry, including dual shoulder-mounted cannons, a powerful laser rifle, and an array of special weapons. He is also able to transform into his alternate form of a jet. Thundercracker is a powerful character in the game, boasting a strong offensive and defensive capability. His special weapons allow him to inflict serious damage to his enemies, and his aerial ability allows him to move quickly around the battlefield. His primary weakness is his lack of agility, making him an easy target for enemies who can outmaneuver him. The game features a variety of side missions that involve Thundercracker, and he is a major part of the game's main storyline. Exploring the comic book story arc of Thundercracker. Thundercracker is a very important and quite influential character in the Transformers comic books. He was one of Megatron's closest allies and a very powerful fighter. He was involved in Megatron's plan to take over the Earth by holding humans hostage. When the Autobots invaded their base, Thundercracker stood by Megatron's side. During a battle with the Autobots, the Decepticons found a statue of Devastator on their doorstep, with a note from the Autobots offering peace. However, the Autobots then came out of the statue and attacked the Decepticons from the skies. Megatron sent Thundercracker and the other Decepticons to fight back, but they were ultimately defeated.
I've become quite useful.
Thundercracker in the Transformers animated series. Thundercracker also makes appearances in the animated series. One of the episodes that stands out is the most are A Bridge Too Close. It's divided into 2 parts. Megatron kidnaps Bulkhead in order to get help building a space bridge. Very early in the episode, we see that Starscream has embedded a piece of the Allspark in his head, and he is using it to create clones of himself. Soon enough, these clones start to fight and argue, until the Black Arachna version tells him that each clone represents a different side of himself. This is a new revelation to him, and yet he doesn't know the details of his clone's personalities because she refused to tell him anything about it. Meanwhile, an unknown blue sports car is revealed to be Blur, an Autobot intelligence agent sent to Earth to monitor Decepticon activity. After a struggle between the Autobots and Decepticons, Bulkhead agrees to finish building the space bridge. Starscream and his clones enter the scene, and a battle ensues. They serve to be a very useful addition to the battle. Was Thundercracker hidden in Dark of the Moon? We've all seen The Dark of the Moon, and I'm sure it's somebody's favorite movie. But how observant do you have to be to spot Thundercracker in the movie? How true is it that he was in the background during an aerial fight in the movie? Lots of fans seem to speculate that he was actually a part of the movie because of his backdrop art for the toy line. In 2011, the Thundercracker toy that was released during the Dark of the Moon era featured the backdrop of an aerial battle, which sort of looks like this one particular aerial battle scene in the movie. We don't really know for sure if he made this cameo, but the majority of the fandom believes in this speculation.
Professor, I've become quite useful.
What makes Thundercracker so unique? Thundercracker can fly up to 1,500 miles per hour and produce loud and controlled sonic booms that can be heard within a deafening magnitude of a 200-mile radius. He can launch a drone rocket with a range of 500 miles that has the force of 3,000 pounds of TNT. It's almost the same as a cruise missile that has the same concussive force. He is armed with an automatic incendiary gun that is mounted on his shoulders, which shoots ceramic bullets containing explosive material and can also unleash powerful sonic booms. He also has a wide range of missiles and bombs that can be used to cause destruction from the air.
Decepticons, Operation Guinea Pig complete.
Conclusion. Thundercracker is a beloved character in the Transformers universe, having been a part of the show since the beginning. Everything about him screams cool. He flies through the sky looking down with disdain on those who cannot soar like him. He expresses his contempt through acts of violence, leaving a trail of destruction behind him. Although he still questions the Decepticons' mission, his need to feel purposeful keeps him following their cause. Although he isn't the most powerful, his loyalty to the Decepticons and his willingness to fight for what he believes in have made him a fan favorite.
And if you like our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
This